He was the last of his kind, until a human toddler fell asleep on his wing. Before we dive into this story, drop a quick hi in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. It really helps support the channel. Draken soared through the emptiness of space, his massive translucent wings spanning kilometers as they captured the solar radiation that sustained him. The last stellar dragon in existence carried the burden of extinction on his ancient shoulders. For over 17,000 years, Draken had wandered the cosmos alone. The memories of his kind grew fainter with each passing century. Their songs, their migration patterns across the galactic spiral arms, their mating dances that once illuminated entire nebulae. Now, only silence accompanied him as he drifted between star systems, a living relic of a species that had witnessed the birth and death of countless civilizations. Stellar dragons were creatures of cosmic proportions. Their bodies, composed primarily of crystalline structures and energy fields, allowed them to survive the harsh conditions of space. They fed on solar radiation, occasionally supplementing their diet with the odd asteroid or comet. Their wings, magnificent, translucent appendages laced with neural pathways that glowed with bioluminescence, served as both solar sails and sensory organs, detecting the subtle vibrations of spacetime itself. Draken had not always been alone. Once, thousands of his kind had populated this spiral arm of the Milky Way. They had been guardians of sorts, ancient beings who observed the rise and fall of sentient species with detached curiosity. But then came the Great Collapse, a catastrophic chain of supernovae that had decimated their feeding grounds and scattered the surviving dragons across the galaxy. One by one, they had perished. He had learned to embrace the solitude, finding a certain peace in his nomadic existence. There was freedom in having no responsibilities to anyone but himself. Still, in the quieter moments between stars, a profound loneliness would occasionally grip his heart, a longing for connection that transcended mere survival. It was during one such moment of melancholy that Draken first encountered humans. He had been orbiting a modest yellow star on the outer edges of the Orion Arm, absorbing radiation to replenish his depleted energy reserves, when he detected an artificial structure approaching his position. Curious, he extended his senses toward the object, analyzing its composition and purpose. It was a colony ship, a massive vessel carrying approximately 10,000 humans in suspended animation. According to the data Draken gleaned from its communications systems, these were refugees fleeing a dying Earth, seeking a new home among the stars. Their destination was a promising exoplanet in the habitable zone of a nearby star system, already partially terraformed by automated drones sent ahead decades earlier. Humans were not unfamiliar to Draken. He had observed their evolution from a distance, watching as they progressed from primitive tool users to spacefaring pioneers. They were resourceful creatures, adaptable and tenacious, with a remarkable capacity for both destruction and creation. Their brief lifespans seemed to fuel an insatiable drive to leave their mark on the universe, a quality that both fascinated and perplexed Draken. But something was wrong with the colony ship. Its trajectory had been compromised, its navigation systems damaged by a recent meteor impact. Instead of heading toward their intended destination, the humans were drifting toward a binary star system known to Draken as the Maw, a volatile pair of stars whose gravitational dance created conditions too turbulent for organic life to survive. If their course remained unchanged, none of the sleeping humans would ever awaken. Their bodies, their dreams, their genetic heritage, all would be consumed by stellar fire. Draken considered his options. He could simply observe, as his kind had done for millions of years, allowing the natural order to take its course. The fate of 10,000 humans was insignificant in the grand cosmic scheme. Their species would continue elsewhere, propagating across the galaxy with or without these particular individuals. And yet, something gave him pause. Perhaps it was the loneliness of his existence, or perhaps it was a newfound appreciation for the fragility of life. Whatever the reason, Draken found himself unwilling to watch another species face extinction when he had the power to intervene. With a gentle adjustment of his massive wings, he altered his course to intercept the colony's ship. His plan was simple. He would use his own body as a gravitational anchor, gradually pulling the vessel away from its collision course with the maw and toward its original destination. It would require precision and patience, but Draken had plenty of both. As he approached the human vessel, he became aware of its internal systems. Most of the colonists remained safely in cryosleep, their vital signs stable despite the ship's predicament. However, a small number of crew members were awake, monitoring the ship's functions and presumably trying to address the navigation failure. Draken positioned himself alongside the colony's ship, careful not to damage its delicate structures with his massive form. Then, with deliberate movements, he began to extend his energy field, creating a gravitational tether between himself and the vessel. The process was gradual, almost imperceptible at first, but over the course of several hours, the ship's trajectory began to shift, veering away from certain destruction. Inside the colony ship, alarms blared as the sensors detected an enormous entity making contact with their vessel. Through the ship's communication channels, Draken could hear the panic in the voices of the awakened crew. "What the hell is that thing?" a male voice demanded. "Some kind of space-dwelling organism," another responded, her tone a mixture of fear and awe. "Massive energy readings, unlike anything in our databases. Is it attacking us?" I don't think so. Our course is changing, but all systems remain functional. If anything, it's pulling us back toward New Eden." "That's not possible. No living creature could be intelligent enough to look at the scanner." "That's exactly what it's doing." There was a pause, filled only with the soft beeping of monitoring equipment. "Should we try to communicate with it?" a third voice suggested. "How? We have no idea what kind of sensory organs it might have, if any. We could try electromagnetic pulses. Simple patterns, like prime numbers." Draken found their discussion amusing. These humans, with their limited understanding of the cosmos, trying to communicate with a being whose existence predated their entire species. Still, he appreciated the effort. It had been a long time since any creature had attempted to speak with him. He decided to respond to their primitive signals, adjusting the bioluminescent patterns on his wings to mirror the sequence of prime numbers they had transmitted. It was a simple gesture, but one he hoped would convey his benevolent intentions. The reaction from within the ship was immediate. It responded. "Did you see that? The lights on its surface, they're mimicking our signal. My God, it's intelligent. We're making first contact with an alien species. Someone wake up Dr. Natalie Quinn. She's our xenobiologist. If anyone can make sense of this, it's her." Draken continued his gradual course correction, maintaining the delicate balance required to alter the ship's trajectory without damaging its structure. It would take approximately 72 hours to complete the maneuver, after which the humans would be back on course toward their new home. Within the colony's ship, activity increased as more specialists were awakened from cryosleep to study the unexpected benefactor. They deployed small drones to capture images of Draken from various angles, analyzed his energy signatures, and continued their attempts at communication with increasingly complex mathematical sequences. Draken responded to their queries with patience, finding an unexpected joy in the interaction. It had been millennia since he had communicated with any sentient being. The human's curiosity and determination reminded him of his own kind in their younger days, before they had grown complacent in their cosmic dominance. By the second day of the rescue operation, the humans had established a rudimentary form of communication with Draken using light patterns and electromagnetic pulses. Their questions were predictably self-centered. "What are you? Where do you come from? Why are you helping us?" Draken answered as best he could, translating complex concepts into simple patterns the humans might comprehend. He explained his nature as a stellar dragon, the last of an ancient species that had once populated this galaxy. He described his solitary existence and his decision to aid them out of a combination of compassion and curiosity. The humans, in turn, shared their own story: the gradual degradation of Earth's ecosystems, the political conflicts that had delayed meaningful action until it was too late, and finally, the desperate exodus of those fortunate enough to secure passage on colony ships bound for habitable worlds. This particular vessel carried primarily families with young children, prioritized to ensure the continuation of human culture and genetic diversity. On the third day, as the rescue operation neared completion, Draken detected an unusual disruption within the colony ship. One of the cryopods had malfunctioned, its occupant awakening prematurely. The ship's internal sensors identified the individual as a female child, approximately 30 months old, who had somehow escaped from the medical bay where she was being monitored. The child's name, according to the ship's records, was Lily Barrett. Her parents remained in cryosleep, unaware that their daughter was now wandering the corridors of the colony ship unsupervised. Draken observed through the ship's surveillance systems as the small human navigated the unfamiliar environment with remarkable determination. She seemed unafraid, despite the unusual circumstances of her awakening. The crew, focused on maintaining communication with Draken and managing the ship's systems, had not yet noticed her absence from the medical bay. The child eventually found her way to an observation deck, a transparent dome that offered an unobstructed view of space and, currently, of Draken's massive form alongside the ship. She pressed her tiny hands against the transparent material, her eyes wide with wonder rather than fear. "Pretty," she said, her voice barely audible through the ship's internal microphones. What happened next defied all logical explanation. The observation deck contained an emergency airlock, designed to serve as both an entry point for spacewalks and a potential escape route in case of catastrophic system failure. Under normal circumstances, opening this airlock required multiple authorization codes and confirmation protocols. Yet somehow, whether through a glitch in the ship's systems or some unfathomable quirk of fate, when Lily Barrett pressed a sequence of colorful buttons on the airlock control panel, the outer door began to cycle open. Alarms immediately blared throughout the ship as the atmospheric integrity of the observation deck was compromised. Emergency force fields activated to contain the breach, but not before Lily was pulled toward the opening airlock by the escaping air. Draken reacted instantly. With a precision that belied his enormous size, he extended a portion of his energy field through the airlock, creating a protective bubble around the child before she could be exposed to the vacuum of space. Then, carefully, he drew her toward him, away from the ship and the chaos erupting within. The crew's panic was palpable as they realized what had happened. The Barrett child is outside the ship. How is this possible? The airlock protocols were overridden somehow. She'll die out there. We need to, wait, look. The creature has her. It's protecting her. Draken cradled the tiny human within his energy field, adjusting its parameters to create an atmosphere similar to that of the colony ship. The child should have been terrified, should have been screaming or crying or showing some sign of distress. Instead, Lily Barrett gazed up at the ancient cosmic being with unabashed delight. "Big butterfly," she declared, reaching out to touch the glowing patterns on the nearest portion of Draken's wing. Draken was astonished. In all his thousands of years of existence, no creature had ever approached him with such innocent fearlessness. The child saw neither a monster nor a deity, but simply a butterfly, whatever that might be in human terminology. He adjusted his bioluminescence, creating a gentle light show for the child's amusement. Lily giggled, the sound somehow transmitting through Draken's energy field and resonating within his crystalline structures in a most peculiar way. Meanwhile, aboard the colony ship, the crew was frantically preparing a rescue mission. They had no way of knowing that the child was safe within Draken's protective field, breathing normally and experiencing no adverse effects from her unexpected excursion. "We're launching a shuttle," came the transmission from the ship. "Please return our child unharmed." Draken considered his response carefully. The humans clearly believed he had abducted the child, perhaps for nefarious purposes. He needed to reassure them without interrupting the delicate course correction still in progress. He adjusted his position slightly, bringing the portion of his wing where Lily sat closer to the observation deck where the airlock breach had occurred. Through the transparent material, the crew could now clearly see the child, sitting contentedly within a softly glowing bubble on the surface of Draken's wing. "She appears unharmed," reported one of the crew members observing from within the ship. She's playing with lights on the creature's surface. "How is she breathing out there?" another demanded. "The creature must be generating some kind of atmospheric bubble around her. The readings suggest it contains a nitrogen-oxygen mixture similar to our ship's air." Draken maintained his position, allowing the humans to see that the child was in no danger. He had no intention of keeping her. His purpose was to save these humans, not abduct them. Once the course correction was complete, he would return Lily to her people and continue on his solitary journey. But the child had other ideas. As the hours passed and the colony ship's new trajectory was firmly established, Lily showed no interest in returning to her people. She had discovered that by touching different areas of Draken's wing, she could elicit various patterns of light and color. It had become a game for her, one that she pursued with the single-minded focus unique to young children. Eventually, exhausted by her adventures, Lily curled up in a small depression on Draken's wing surface, yawned widely, and promptly fell asleep. The moment of the child's surrender to slumber sent a shock wave through Draken's entire being. Something ancient and primal awakened within him, a biological imperative he had thought long extinct. The particular pressure of the small human body against his wing, the rhythmic pattern of her breathing, the trace electrical impulses from her developing brain, all combined to trigger a dormant reproductive cycle in Draken's biology. For the first time in thousands of years, Draken felt the stirring of new life within his crystalline core. The cells that had remained dormant since the extinction of his kind began to divide and differentiate, drawing energy from his reserves to form a new embryonic stellar dragon. He was reproducing asexually, something that should have been impossible for his species. Stellar dragons had always required a mate to combine genetic material. Yet somehow, the presence of this human child had activated an evolutionary failsafe, a last resort mechanism to prevent total extinction. Draken trembled with the implications. He was no longer the last of his kind. A new generation would follow him, carrying the legacy of the stellar dragons forward into the future. And it was all because a human toddler had fallen asleep on his wing. As this miraculous transformation occurred within him, Draken became aware of increased activity aboard the colony ship. A small shuttle had been prepared and was now approaching his position, presumably to retrieve the sleeping child. The shuttle drew near, hovering at a respectful distance. Through its communication system, a female voice addressed him. "This is Dr. Natalie Quinn of the colony ship New Genesis. We've come for the child. Please understand that she's very important to us. She's not just any colonist. She's the first human born in space, conceived and delivered during our journey. Her ability to adapt to new environments may be crucial for our species' future." Draken processed this information with interest. Perhaps that explained the child's unusual fearlessness and her strange effect on his biology. She was, in her own way, as unique among humans as he was among cosmic entities. With gentle movements, he shifted the sleeping Lily toward the shuttle, maintaining the protective field around her until she could be safely retrieved by her own kind. Dr. Quinn emerged from the shuttle in a spacesuit, carefully collected the still sleeping child, and returned to the vessel. "Thank you," came the transmission as the shuttle prepared to return to the colony ship. "We don't fully understand what you are or why you helped us, but we are grateful. You've saved not just this child, but all 10,000 colonists aboard our ship." Draken pulsed his bioluminescence in acknowledgement, then began to withdraw from the colony ship. His task was complete. The humans were back on course toward their new home, and the child was safely returned to her people. It was time for him to continue his journey, to find a suitable location where he could nurture the new life growing within him. As he began to drift away, however, an unexpected transmission reached him from the colony ship. "Wait, where are you going?" We'd like you to come with us to New Eden. Our scientists have so many questions, and clearly, you possess knowledge that could benefit our colony. Plus, Lily seems quite attached to you." Draken hesitated. The offer was tempting. After countless years of solitude, the prospect of regular interaction with an intelligent species held a certain appeal. And there was the matter of the new stellar dragon embryo developing within him. Perhaps a young dragon would benefit from exposure to other forms of life rather than the isolated existence Draken had known. But there were risks to consider as well. Humans had a mixed historical record when it came to encountering new species. While these particular humans seemed grateful and friendly, there was no guarantee that attitude would persist once they established their colony. As Draken contemplated his decision, he became aware of subtle changes in the embryonic dragon within him. The developing consciousness was already forming neural pathways, absorbing information from Draken's own memories and experiences. And curiously, there seemed to be an unusual affinity for human brain patterns, as if the brief contact with Lily had somehow imprinted on the embryo's developing mind. This unexpected development settled the matter for Draken. The new generation of stellar dragons would need to understand humans if they were to coexist in this galaxy. And the humans, with their rapid technological advancement, would eventually encounter cosmic phenomena beyond their comprehension. Perhaps Draken could serve as an intermediary, a bridge between two very different forms of intelligence. With a graceful adjustment of his wings, Draken altered his course to match that of the colony ship, signaling his acceptance of their invitation. The response from the humans was immediate, a burst of excited communications and celebrations that Draken found both amusing and heartwarming. As the unlikely companions continued their journey toward New Eden, Draken reflected on the strange twist of fate that had led him here. For millennia, he had resigned himself to being the last of his kind, carrying the memory of his species alone until his eventual death. Now, because of a chance encounter with a fearless human child, the legacy of the stellar dragons would continue. The universe, it seemed, had a peculiar sense of humor, and perhaps a touch of mercy for those who had carried the burden of solitude for too long. From within the colony ship, Lily Barrett awoke in the medical bay, surrounded by concerned adults. Her first word upon waking was not a call for her parents or a cry of distress, but a simple question: "Butterfly?" Dr. Quinn smiled down at the child. "He's still with us, little one. Your butterfly is coming with us to our new home." Lily's face brightened with a smile that seemed to illuminate the entire room. "My friend," she declared with the absolute certainty unique to very young children. Across the void of space, still maintaining his careful position alongside the colony ship, Draken felt a strange resonance within his crystalline structure, something akin to what humans might call happiness. For the first time in thousands of years, he was not alone. And soon, very soon, a new stellar dragon would join him in the cosmic dance. He was the last of his kind, until a human toddler fell asleep on his wing. Now, he would be the first of a new beginning. The journey to New Eden would take several more weeks at the colony ship's maximum speed. During this time, Draken maintained a constant position alongside the vessel, occasionally adjusting his wings to catch the radiation from passing stars and replenish his energy reserves. The humans, for their part, established a more sophisticated method of communication with him, developing a specialized interface that translated their language into patterns of light and electromagnetic pulses that Draken could understand. Through this interface, they shared information about their history, culture, and plans for the colony on New Eden. Draken, in turn, shared what he could of his own vast knowledge of the cosmos. He described phenomena the humans had yet to discover, warned them of dangerous regions of space to avoid, and provided insights into the complex web of gravitational fields that influenced interstellar travel. Some of this information was beyond current human comprehension, but their scientists diligently recorded everything, confident that future generations would make use of Draken's wisdom. Lily Barrett became a frequent participant in these exchanges. Despite the concerns of the medical staff, she showed no ill effects from her brief exposure to Draken's energy field. If anything, she seemed more vibrant and alert than other children her age. She was permitted to visit the observation deck daily, where she would press her hands against the transparent material and communicate with Draken in her own simple way, often through drawings that the adults would transmit to him. Draken found these childish communications more charming than the complex scientific inquiries from the adult humans. Lily's perspective was unclouded by preconceptions or fear. She accepted Draken exactly as he was, without attempting to classify or study him. It was refreshing. As the colony ship approached New Eden, Draken became increasingly aware of the changes occurring within him. The embryonic stellar dragon was developing rapidly, drawing on Draken's vast energy reserves. Soon, it would be ready to emerge and begin its own existence as an independent entity. The timing seemed appropriate. New beginnings for both species, humans establishing their colony on an unfamiliar world, and a new generation of stellar dragons entering the universe. There was a symmetry to it that appealed to Draken's aesthetic sensibilities. New Eden itself proved to be a promising habitat. The automated terraforming drones had performed their function admirably, creating an atmosphere and ecosystem suitable for human habitation. The planet orbited a stable star at an optimal distance, with a day-night cycle similar to Earth's in gravity, approximately 1.1 times that of humanity's home world. As the colony ship entered orbit and preparations began for the first landing parties, Draken positioned himself on the far side of the planet. The process that was about to occur would release a significant amount of energy, and he did not wish to alarm or potentially harm the humans. In the privacy of New Eden's shadow, Draken initiated the final stage of reproduction. His crystalline body began to glow with increasing intensity as the embryonic dragon prepared to emerge. The process was not painful, but it required intense concentration to ensure that the new life would be properly formed and viable. With a final surge of energy that briefly outshone the system's star, the new stellar dragon separated from Draken's body, a smaller but perfect replica of its parent, its translucent wings unfurling for the first time as it tasted the solar radiation of its birthplace. Draken felt a profound sense of accomplishment as he observed the newborn dragon. After thousands of years believing he was the last, he had lived to see the continuation of his species. The universe no longer faced a future without stellar dragons. The infant dragon, which Draken had privately named Lumen in honor of its luminous birth, instinctively oriented itself toward its parent, its neural pathways already complex enough to recognize Draken as kin. Communication between them was instantaneous, a direct sharing of thought and memory that required no translation. Draken imparted essential knowledge to his offspring: how to navigate the cosmos, how to feed on different types of radiation, how to avoid the dangerous phenomena that populated the galaxy. But he also shared something unique to this particular young dragon: an understanding of humans and their significance. When the birthing process was complete and Lumen had stabilized its energy field, Draken led his offspring back around the planet to where the colony ship still orbited. The humans had been monitoring the unusual energy readings from New Eden's far side, but had maintained a respectful distance, perhaps understanding that something significant was occurring. As the two stellar dragons approached the colony ship, Draken transmitted a simple message through the communication interface the humans had established. I present to you the newest member of my species, the first stellar dragon to be born in 17,000 years. The response from the humans was a mixture of awe, congratulations, and scientific curiosity. They had not anticipated witnessing such a momentous event, and their sensors were already busy gathering data on the newborn cosmic entity. But it was Lily Barrett's reaction that truly mattered to Draken. The child had been brought to the observation deck when the dragons returned, and her delight at seeing not one but two butterflies was boundless. "Baby butterfly," she exclaimed, pressing her face against the transparent material, her breath fogging the surface around her lips. Through the ship's external cameras, Draken could see the pure joy on the child's face, a reflection of his own profound happiness at the birth of his offspring. In that moment, despite the vast differences between their species, a connection formed that transcended biology or logic. The human child who had inadvertently saved an ancient species from extinction, and the cosmic entity who had found new purpose through an unexpected encounter. Both forever changed by their brief contact, both facing futures brighter than they could have imagined before their paths crossed. As the colony ship descended toward the surface of New Eden to begin humanity's new chapter, Draken and Lumen accompanied them, two luminous guardians escorting the fragile vessel through the upper atmosphere. The future stretched before them, full of possibilities. Perhaps Lumen would one day reproduce as Draken had, creating more stellar dragons to repopulate the cosmos. Perhaps humans would spread to other star systems, carrying with them the story of the massive space-dwelling creatures who had saved their ancestors and become their allies. Whatever came next, Draken was no longer alone, and for that, he would be eternally grateful to a fearless human toddler who had seen a friend where others might have seen a monster. In the grand tapestry of cosmic events, it was a small moment, a child falling asleep on a dragon's wing. But sometimes, the smallest moments create the most profound changes. The colonization of New Eden proceeded with remarkable efficiency. Within months, the first permanent structures had been established on the planet's surface, prefabricated habitation modules arranged in concentric circles around a central administrative hub. Fields of genetically modified crops spread outward from the settlement, taking advantage of the rich soil and favorable climate engineered by the terraforming drones. Draken and Lumen established their own territory in a mountainous region approximately 200 kilometers from the human colony. The area featured several dormant volcanoes whose geothermal activity provided a pleasant background radiation that both dragons found soothing. From this vantage point, they could observe the humans without interfering in their daily activities, yet remain close enough to respond if their assistance was needed. As the months passed, Lumen grew at an astonishing rate. The young stellar dragon absorbed knowledge from both Draken and the surrounding cosmos, developing a unique personality that combined his father's ancient wisdom with a youthful curiosity about the universe. Unlike Draken, who had been born into a society of his peers, Lumen approached existence without preconceived notions of how a stellar dragon should behave. This freedom from tradition manifested in unexpected ways. Where Draken preferred to remain in space, descending into planetary atmospheres only when necessary, Lumen found the varied environments of New Eden fascinating. The young dragon spent hours studying weather patterns, ocean currents, and the complex interplay of the planet's developing ecosystems. Sometimes, Lumen would shape his energy field into a concentrated form that could pass through the atmosphere without disruption, allowing for closer observation of the surface. It was during one such expedition that Lumen first encountered Lily Barrett on her own terms, away from the confines of the colony ship or settlement. Lily had grown too, though at a much slower rate than the young stellar dragon. Now nearly 4 years old, she had become something of a celebrity among the colonists. The child who had communed with a cosmic entity and inadvertently helped save their species had a certain status that even adults respected. Her parents, scientists who specialized in xenobiology and planetary adaptation, encouraged her natural curiosity while trying to provide as normal a childhood as possible under the circumstances. On this particular day, Lily had accompanied her father, Lucas Barrett, on a routine expedition to collect soil samples from the foothills near the settlement. While Lucas was absorbed in his work, cataloging microscopic organisms that might affect crop growth, Lily wandered a short distance away, following a small stream that cascaded down from the higher elevations. The water fascinated her. Earth had been so depleted of natural resources by the time she was born that she had never seen a wild stream before coming to New Eden. The way the liquid caught the sunlight, the sounds it made as it tumbled over rocks, the tiny creatures that darted beneath its surface, all were sources of endless wonder. She was so engrossed in her exploration that she didn't notice the subtle shifts in air pressure and light that signaled Lumen's approach. It wasn't until a shadow passed over the stream that Lily looked up to see a concentrated portion of the young stellar dragon hovering above her. In this condensed form, Lumen appeared as a shimmering, translucent entity roughly the size of a small aircraft. Patterns of light pulsed across his surface, creating complex geometries that reflected both his thoughts and emotions. Most children would have been frightened by such an unexpected encounter. But Lily Barrett was not most children. "Baby butterfly," she exclaimed, her face lighting up with recognition and joy. "You got big." Lumen adjusted his energy field to create a communication interface similar to the one the humans had developed for Draken. Through this medium, his thoughts were translated into simple language that Lily could understand. "Hello, Lily Barrett. I am Lumen, offspring of Draken. You helped create me." Lily tilted her head, considering this information with the seriousness that young children sometimes apply to profound concepts. "I did. When you slept on my father's wing, you triggered changes in his biology that allowed me to be born." "Oh." Lily nodded as if this made perfect sense. "That's good. Being alone is sad." "Yes," Lumen agreed. "Being alone is sad." This simple exchange marked the beginning of an unusual friendship. While Draken maintained a more formal relationship with the human colony as a whole, serving as an advisor and occasional protector, Lumen and Lily developed a personal connection that transcended the vast differences between their species. Lucas Barrett eventually noticed his daughter's absence and came looking for her, only to find her engaged in animated conversation with a being composed primarily of energy and crystalline structures. To his credit, after the initial shock, Lucas approached the situation with scientific curiosity rather than fear. "Dr. Barrett," Lumen acknowledged as the human man cautiously joined his daughter. "I am Lumen, child of Draken. It's an honor to meet you," Lucas replied, placing a protective hand on Lily's shoulder. "I see you've already met my daughter." "We have a prior connection," Lumen explained. "Her neural patterns were imprinted on my developing consciousness during gestation." Lucas raised an eyebrow at this revelation but maintained his composure. "I'd be very interested to learn more about that process, if you're willing to share such information." And so began a three-way conversation that would eventually lead to a formal research partnership between Lucas Barrett and the young stellar dragon. Lily, too young to understand the scientific implications, was simply delighted to have reclaimed her baby butterfly as a friend. As the years passed, the relationship between the humans of New Eden and the two stellar dragons evolved in complex and mutually beneficial ways. Draken's vast knowledge of cosmic phenomena helped the colonists establish more efficient energy collection systems and navigation protocols for their interplanetary vessels. In return, the humans shared their cultural heritage with the ancient being, introducing him to music, literature, and art, concepts that Draken found surprisingly enriching after millennia of solitary existence. Lumen, meanwhile, became an ambassador of sorts between the species. The young dragon's fascination with planetary ecosystems led to collaborations with human scientists that accelerated their understanding of New Eden's environment. Lumen's ability to perceive energy patterns invisible to human senses proved invaluable in predicting weather events, detecting potential geological instabilities, and identifying resources beneath the planet's surface. And always, at the center of this interspecies cooperation, was Lily Barrett. As she grew from a precocious toddler into a thoughtful child, and then a brilliant adolescent, her unique bond with Lumen deepened. By the time she was 16, Lily had developed a comprehensive theoretical framework for human-dragon communication that went beyond the simple translation interfaces initially used. This new system allowed for the transmission of complex emotional states and abstract concepts that had previously been lost in translation. For the first time, humans could truly understand the way stellar dragons perceive the universe, not just intellectually, but emotionally as well. The impact on both species was profound. Human philosophers and artists gained insights that transformed their creative expressions, while the dragons experienced human emotions and sensory perceptions that added new dimensions to their consciousness. It was during this period of cultural exchange that Draken began to detect subtle changes in the cosmic background radiation surrounding New Eden. At first, these anomalies were so minor that even Lumen, with his heightened sensitivity to planetary conditions, failed to notice them. But Draken, with the pattern recognition capabilities developed over thousands of years, recognized the signs of an approaching disturbance. Something was coming, something that had not been present in this region of space during Draken's previous passages through the system. The energy signatures were unfamiliar, yet there was an underlying pattern that triggered ancient warnings in Draken's memory. After confirming his observations over several planetary rotations, Draken shared his concerns with the human colony's leadership council and with Lumen. The news was received with appropriate gravity. "Can you estimate when this disturbance might reach New Eden?" asked Governor Elena Fox, the elected leader of the colony. "Based on current trajectories, approximately 67 of your days," Draken replied through the enhanced communication system Lily had developed. "However, I must emphasize that my understanding of this phenomenon is incomplete. I have observed similar patterns in distant regions of the galaxy, but never in such proximity to inhabited worlds." "What happened in those distant regions?" Dr. Natalie Quinn asked. She had become the colony's chief science officer in the years since the initial landing. Draken's response was sobering. Total energy dissipation. In simpler terms, anything within the affected area had its atomic bonds severed. Matter was reduced to its component particles. The implications were clear. If this phenomenon reached New Eden, the colony, and possibly the planet itself, would be destroyed. 17 years of building a new home for humanity would be erased in moments. "Can we evacuate?" Governor Fox asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. The colony ship was dismantled years ago to provide materials for the settlement, Dr. Quinn reminded her. "Our interplanetary vessels are designed for exploration within this system, not long-distance space travel. Even if we could fit all 15,000 colonists aboard, we have nowhere to go. Then we must find a way to deflect or neutralize this phenomenon," declared Lucas Barrett, who had joined the council after his groundbreaking work with Lumen. "Draken, in your experience, is such a thing possible?" The ancient dragon was silent for a moment, his crystalline structures pulsing with deep thought. "I have never observed a successful defense against this type of event. However, my knowledge is not absolute. It may be possible to create an energy barrier that could disperse the approaching disturbance." "What would such a barrier require?" Dr. Quinn asked, already making calculations on her data pad. "More power than your colony can generate," Draken stated simply. "However, Lumen and I could potentially serve as the primary energy sources, channeling our natural absorption capabilities to create a shield around the planet." "Would that put you at risk?" Lily asked quietly. Now a young woman of 21, she had earned a place on the council through her pioneering work in interspecies communication. Her concern was not just for the colony, but for the beings she had come to regard as family. "Yes," Draken acknowledged. "The process would require us to position ourselves directly in the path of the approaching phenomenon. If our calculations are incorrect or the disturbance is stronger than anticipated, we could be destroyed." Lumen, who had been observing the discussion silently, now spoke. "There is another option, though it carries its own risks. My studies of New Eden's geothermal systems suggest that the planet's core contains unusual properties, possibly related to the specific minerals used in the terraforming process. If we could trigger a controlled release of this energy, directed outward at the precise moment the disturbance arrives. It might disrupt the phenomenon before it can affect the planet's surface. A planetary-scale energy weapon. Governor Fox looked skeptical. Even if that's theoretically possible, the potential for catastrophic failure seems enormous. It is, Lumen agreed. But it distributes the risk between all parties rather than placing it solely on Draken and myself. And if successful, it would not just deflect the disturbance, but potentially neutralize it completely. After hours of debate, the Council decided to pursue both strategies simultaneously. Teams of scientists and engineers would work with Lumen to develop the planetary defense system, while others would coordinate with Draken to create a backup plan involving the Dragon's energy manipulation abilities. The next 67 days were a flurry of activity on New Eden. The entire colony mobilized around the defense effort, with even children contributing by monitoring sensors or delivering supplies to the various research teams. Old rivalries and political disagreements were set aside in the face of an existential threat that affected every living being on the planet. Lily Barrett found herself at the center of this massive undertaking, serving as the primary liaison between the human teams and the stellar dragons. Her unique relationship with both species made her invaluable in translating complex technical concepts and facilitating the rapid exchange of information. As the projected arrival of the cosmic disturbance drew nearer, the planetary defense system began to take shape. Massive energy collectors were positioned at strategic points around New Eden, designed to channel the planet's geothermal power into a concentrated beam that would be directed into space. Satellite arrays were repositioned to provide early warning and targeting capabilities, while underground bunkers were prepared to shelter the population in case the defense failed. 3 days before the expected arrival of the disturbance, Draken detected a change in its behavior. The phenomenon was accelerating, its energy signature intensifying in ways that defied the predictive models the scientists had developed. "It will reach us tomorrow," he announced to the emergency council session hastily convened in response to his findings. "And it is significantly more powerful than our initial readings suggested." The news sent a wave of controlled panic through the colony. Final preparations were accelerated, non-essential personnel were moved to the emergency shelters, and all systems were brought to full readiness. That night, as New Eden's inhabitants tried to rest before what might be their final day, Lily found herself unable to sleep. She left her quarters in the central administrative hub and made her way to the highest observation platform, seeking a moment of quiet reflection beneath the stars. To her surprise, she found both Draken and Lumen hovering near the platform, their massive forms partially condensed to allow for closer proximity to the human structure. "You should be resting," Lumen said as Lily approached the railing. "So should you," she replied with a small smile. "Tomorrow will be challenging for all of us." Draken's crystalline structures pulsed gently. "Stellar dragons do not require sleep as humans understand it. Our consciousness operates continuously." "That sounds exhausting," Lily remarked, leaning against the railing and gazing up at the night sky. "Never having a break from your own thoughts." "We experience time differently," Draken explained. "What might seem an unbearable eternity to a human is but a moment in our perception." They fell silent for a while, three vastly different beings united by circumstances none could have predicted. The stars above them shimmered peacefully, giving no indication of the cosmic calamity approaching their world. "I never thank you properly," Lily said finally, addressing Draken, "for saving me when I was a child, and for staying with us all these years." "It is I who should express gratitude," the ancient dragon responded, his communication carrying nuances of emotion that the original interfaces could never have conveyed. "Your presence in my life, your very existence, changed the course of my species' history. Because of you, I am no longer the last." Lumen's form brightened slightly. "And I would not exist without your intervention, Lily Barrett. Our fates have been intertwined since that first encounter." "Whatever happens tomorrow," Lily said softly, "I'm glad we had these years together." My life has been extraordinary because of both of you. As dawn broke over New Eden, the colony's defense systems were fully activated. The massive energy collectors hummed with power drawn from deep within the planet's core, while the satellite array maintained constant monitoring of the approaching disturbance. Draken and Lumen positioned themselves in the upper atmosphere, ready to implement their contingency plan if the planetary defense failed. Their massive wings extended to full span, creating a shimmering barrier between the colony and the stars. In the control center beneath the administrative hub, Lily coordinated communications between the human technicians and the stellar dragons, her voice calm despite the tension evident in every face around her. Disturbance will reach outer marker in 5 minutes, reported a sensor technician, her eyes fixed on the holographic display showing the phenomenon's approach. Energy collectors at maximum capacity, confirmed the chief engineer. Targeting systems locked and ready. Governor Fox stood at the center of the control room, her expression resolute. On my command, we will fire the planetary defense system. If that fails, we immediately switch to the Dragon Barrier plan. Is that understood? Affirmations echoed around the room as each team leader acknowledged the directive. The minutes ticked by with excruciating slowness. Through the communication link, Lily could sense the dragons' preparations, the subtle adjustments to their energy fields, the careful calibration of their positions to maximize coverage of the colony. Disturbance at outer marker now, announced the sensor technician. Impact in 60 seconds. Governor Fox took a deep breath. Prepare to fire on my mark. The energy collectors reached their peak output, the combined power of New Eden's geothermal core channeled through technologies developed through human-dragon collaboration. The targeting array locked onto the approaching disturbance, now visible as a rippling distortion in the fabric of space itself. 3, 2, 1 mark. A blinding beam of energy erupted from the planet's surface, shooting upward through the atmosphere and into space. The control room's displays automatically dimmed to protect human eyes from the intensity of the discharge. For a moment, it seemed to work. The beam struck the leading edge of the cosmic disturbance, creating a visible disruption in its approach pattern. Cheers began to rise from the technicians monitoring the effect. But then the disturbance adapted. Instead of dissipating under the assault, it seemed to absorb the energy, growing more intense. The beam began to falter as feedback surged through the collection system. Coolant systems failing in collectors 3 and 7, reported the chief engineer, his voice tight with stress. We can't maintain this output level. The disturbance is accelerating again, added the sensor technician. Impact in 15 seconds. Governor Fox made the call. Switch to barrier plan. Now, Lily's fingers flew across her communication console, relaying the command to Draken and Lumen. Planetary defense insufficient. Implement barrier immediately. Above New Eden, the two stellar dragons responded with perfect synchronization. Their massive forms began to glow with increasing intensity as they channeled their internal energy reserves into a protective field encompassing the planet's atmosphere. The cosmic disturbance struck this barrier with tremendous force. From the surface, it appeared as if a second sun had suddenly ignited in the sky, a blinding flash that turned night into day despite the atmospheric shielding. In the control room, systems flickered as power surges rippled through the colony's infrastructure. Emergency generators kicked in automatically, maintaining life support and critical functions. Status of the barrier? Governor Fox demanded. Lily checked her readings, her heart racing. Holding, but Draken and Lumen are taking massive energy drainage. They can't maintain this indefinitely. Outside, the stellar dragons fought against the cosmic force threatening to tear apart their protective field. Their crystalline structures vibrated at frequencies never before attempted, channeling and redirecting the destructive energy away from the planet below. Draken, with his millennia of experience, recognized a pattern in the disturbance, a rhythmic fluctuation that suggested it might not be a natural phenomenon after all. This realization sparked an idea, a desperate gambit based on ancient knowledge he had acquired during his solitary wanderings. Through their mental link, he shared this insight with Lumen. There is intelligence behind this attack. It bears the signature of the Void Weavers, entities I encountered only once, near the galactic core. They feed on energy released during planetary destruction. How do we stop them? Lumen asked, straining to maintain his portion of the barrier. We don't fight the energy, Draken explained. We harmonize with it, create a resonance pattern that disrupts their control. Together, the two dragons began to adjust their energy emissions, no longer simply blocking the attack, but engaging with it, creating complex interference patterns that targeted the underlying structure of the disturbance. On the planet's surface, Lily detected the change in strategy. The readings from the dragons showed a completely different approach than what they had planned. For a moment, she feared they had lost control under the assault. But then she recognized what they were attempting, a principle similar to destructive interference in wave physics, but operating on multiple dimensional levels simultaneously. It was brilliant and potentially suicidal. What's happening up there? Governor Fox asked, noticing Lily's intense focus on the readings. They're trying something new, Lily replied, not taking her eyes from the display. Something they didn't tell us about. In the upper atmosphere, the cosmic battle reached its climax. The stellar dragon's counter-resonance began to take effect, creating ripples of disruption that spread through the attacking phenomenon. Where their energies met, space itself seemed to fold and unfold in impossible geometries, visible from the surface as auroras of colors humans had never before witnessed. And then, with a final surge of power that drew on their deepest reserves, Draken and Lumen completed their counter-resonance pattern. The effect was immediate and spectacular. The cosmic disturbance collapsed in on itself, its energy dispersing harmlessly into the surrounding space. In the control room, cheers erupted as the sensors confirmed what had happened. The threat was neutralized. New Eden was safe. But Lily's attention remained fixed on her readings from the dragons. Their energy signatures were dangerously weak, particularly Draken's. The ancient being had expended nearly all his reserves in the final push to collapse the attack. We need to help them, she announced, already moving toward the exit. Draken is critically depleted. A rescue mission was quickly assembled. As the colony's fastest atmospheric shuttle was prepared for launch, Lily gathered specialized equipment designed to provide emergency energy transfer to the dragons if needed. By the time they reached the upper atmosphere, Lumen had partially recovered, his natural absorption capabilities already beginning to replenish his reserves from the abundant solar radiation. But Draken remained in a state of near stasis, his once brilliant crystalline structures dim and unresponsive. With Lumen's assistance, they managed to bring Draken to the surface, creating a secure area near the colony where both dragons could rest without interference. Teams of scientists and engineers worked around the clock to develop systems that might help accelerate Draken's recovery, but the fundamental biology of stellar dragons remained partially mysterious even after years of cooperation. 3 days passed with little improvement in Draken's condition. Lily refused to leave his side, monitoring his faint energy signatures and speaking to him continuously, hoping that some part of his consciousness could hear her. On the 4th day, as dawn broke over New Eden, Lily fell asleep beside the fallen dragon, exhausted from her constant vigil. Perhaps it was coincidence, or perhaps it was something more profound, but as the human who had once triggered Draken's reproductive cycle slept beside him once again, something stirred within the ancient being's core. Lily awoke to a gentle pulsing of light. Draken's crystalline structures had begun to glow, faintly at first, then with increasing brightness. His consciousness, which had retreated to the deepest protected core of his being, began to expand outward once more. "You're back," Lily whispered, tears of relief streaming down her face. Draken's response came slowly, his communication systems still recovering. The resonance pattern, it worked? Yes, she confirmed. The attack was neutralized completely. New Eden is safe. Good. The ancient dragon structures pulsed with satisfaction. The Void Weavers will not return to this region. They avoid areas where their methods have failed. Over the following weeks, Draken's strength gradually returned, though he estimated it would take years to fully replenish the energy he had expended in the defense of New Eden. During his recovery, he shared what knowledge he possessed about the Void Weavers, cosmic predators that orchestrated planetary destruction to feed on the released energy. The colony's leadership took this information seriously, establishing new monitoring protocols and defense systems designed specifically to detect and counter any similar threats in the future. But more importantly, they recognized that their survival had depended entirely on the sacrifice nearly made by the stellar dragons. In recognition of this debt, the Council unanimously voted to establish a formal alliance with Draken and Lumen, not as benevolent protectors or scientific curiosities, but as equal partners in the future of New Eden. The Stellar Dragon Covenant, as it came to be known, guaranteed the dragons autonomy while creating frameworks for ongoing cooperation in areas of mutual interest. For Lily Barrett, now hailed as a hero for her role in coordinating the successful defense, the establishment of the Covenant represented the fulfillment of a journey that had begun when she was just a toddler. The frightening vacuum breach that had sent her tumbling into space had ultimately led to this moment. Humans and dragons united in a common future, each bringing their unique strengths to the partnership. On the one-year anniversary of the attack, as the colony celebrated both their survival and the new covenant, Draken shared a private revelation with Lily and Lumen. The resonance we created against the Void Weavers had an unexpected consequence, he explained, his communication carrying nuances of wonder and hope. It seems to have activated dormant genetic material within my system, material I believed lost forever. What does that mean? Lily asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. I am capable of reproducing again, Draken confirmed. Not just through the unusual method triggered by your presence, but through the traditional means of my species. The energy patterns we generated somehow restored this ability. Lumen's form brightened with excitement. Then we could potentially restore our entire species? In time, yes, Draken agreed. Though it would require finding suitable conditions and carefully managing genetic diversity from such a limited starting population. The colony's geneticists could help with that, Lily suggested. We've developed advanced techniques for maintaining healthy populations from small founder groups. And so, as New Eden continued to flourish, a new chapter began, not just for the human colony or for the two stellar dragons who had saved it, but for an ancient species being given a second chance at existence. All because, years earlier, a fearless human toddler had fallen asleep on a dragon's wing. And that was the end of the story. If you listened all the way to here, don't forget to leave feedback about what you thought of the story in the comments, whether positive or negative. Your feedback helps us improve. Also, leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. And I'll leave here on the screen another video that I'm sure you'll like. Big hug, and see you in the next story.